heat the room. We used to have kursi and we used charcoal, and there was fire during the night, and smoke filled the room. But we had rented a room to the principal of the school, Badr Kuhi, I still remember his name. That night, for a special reason, he was in a party late at night. He came late, maybe 12 o'clock, midnight or 1, and he felt a lot of smoke. So he woke us up and saved us from that. We would have both suffocated in that room if he had not saved us. The second event was when there was a terrible storm and the roof came down with bricks, and large pieces fell around our head and did not hit any of us. So both of us escaped death. I'll say a little bit more later, but every life is a book of lessons. We can learn from each person a lesson. And I like to share with you 2 lessons that I learned from my brother. The first lesson was his positive attitude. I do not know if I can remember anyone who has such a positive attitude about the future. He always believed that Iran will be saved and he will go and proclaim the faith and see all his loved ones. He never gave up this vision, and he said we would both of us together, and I would often laugh, smile, and say I knew it would be impossible for us to travel at this age. So this is amazing. In spite of all the health problems he had, he was always up and looking forward to the future. The second was a lesson I learned from him, and all of us can learn, was his infinite drive to push forward, to serve, to move, to proclaim the faith the best way he could. Toward the end, about a few months ago, he said, I am finished. I really don't have much more to do. So he got some signals that he was finished with his mission in life. I'd like to say something about my coming to the United States and his role in my this great adventure. In those years, over 60 years ago, it was very unusual for anyone to come to the United States. But I was attending university, and they said, because you're a Baha'i, this was during the Shah, you cannot become a teacher. I love to teach English, and so that was an incentive for me to come to U.S. And he was probably more than anyone else supported me, my decision in every way he could to come to this country. And the great service he rendered was I was given some kind of a scholarship, and every 3 months he would go to the ministry and get the papers and go to the bank and send the money. I don't know how I could have continued my education without his support. So I'm so grateful to him. And about maybe 3-4 months ago, I started having a dream. I would see him with me again and again, together, walking, moving in a direction, and he was always ahead of me. It's sort of leading me. And I was puzzled by the meaning of this dream, these dreams, a succession of dreams, until I realized that the dream means that I should thank him for all the support that he had given me and leading me in this direction. So I called him and said the meaning of the last dream became very, very clear. I called him and said, I have failed to thank you, although in action I have supported him and encouraged him in whatever he did, but verbally I had never thought thank him for this effort that he had made. So I told him about this, I thanked him, and I think I paid my debt in this way, and he was very humble, and he did not think what he done was of any significance. So the lesson that I learned from this encounter is appreciation of those who help us, who support us. Don't wait until they pass away. Give them thanks and appreciate them and love them and show your support while they're alive. So this was a little bit about the past, and I hope I won't talk more than 15 minutes. If I do, let me know. I'd like to say a little bit about afterlife. I cannot imagine there is anything in this world that can change our perspective on life as afterlife. Uh, Most of us think of now and here. We want to be happy at this moment and here right now. But this belief in afterlife changes our perspective on a scale that is unimaginable. Uh, I give an example. We are like chickens running for seeds, you know. We're looking down and looking for seeds. This belief in afterlife transforms us into an ego. All of a sudden, we rise to the highest heaven and see, have a broad perspective about what this life is all about. For this reason, I think we should pay more attention to the study of afterlife. I encourage all of you in your community, wherever you are, to have a class and start talking about afterlife, studying the evidence for afterlife. And I'd like to speak about the evidence that Baha'u'llah, more than anything else, gives to convince us that death is not the end. And that is the world of dreams. He asks us again and again that why we are in a room, confined, we appear like dead, our eyes are closed, there is no sound, there is nothing, yet we experience life to the fullest in our dream. He said this is an evidence that we can survive death. And I have heard that the Bab had said that God created the world of dreams so that we would not deny the next life. This is how significant the world of dream is as an evidence of afterlife. And Baha'u'llah especially emphasizes the dreams of the future. Imagine if any of us would predict even 1 second of the future. We don't know if we will be alive next hour, next minute, even next second. Somebody in an accident and dies in 1 second. Yet, in the world of dream, we get glimpses of the future. Many people have dreams of the future, and I will give you some examples. And this proves beyond any doubt, no one can deny this. If you can find anyone could deny this, how can we be able to look into the future and know an event that has not yet happened? So most of you have had dreams. I'm sure if we ask all of you, will come up with a dream that you've had. I've had over the course of my life many dreams. And let me share with you a few examples. The first one is from my dream Parviz, who passed away. He had a dream of heaven, and I know several people who have had dreams of heaven. And he always said it was so beautiful that I never feared death. I just love to be in that position. The beauty of heaven is such that no one can ever describe it. So that dream really gave him even more drive and more positive feeling that life has a purpose and his home will be heaven, so beautiful. And we hope all of us will meet in place of Zoom. We will be in heaven face to face and talk to each other and meet each other. The next dream is about the future is one of our close relatives, my wife's nephew, Dr. Saidi Burgis. He was a medical doctor, a specialist in kidney disease in Germany. He was a wonderful Baha'i who taught classes in Germany and very active. He said he came to Canada to visit my wife's mother. And he told me that he had a dream that Abdul Baha came to his dream and said, you will die 10 years later. So he said that he had told this dream to his students that he would teach about the faith. And they said, oh, you have 10 more years, don't worry. He said, oh, 9 years already passed. So he had 1 more year to go. And when he came to Canada, he He had only a few months left from those 10 years. So he told me about the dream, and he sent me a letter that showed it's the quality of life that matters, not the quantity of life. It's a poem from a famous Persian poet. So, sure enough, he had a heart attack. His son was also a doctor present in his home and tried to save him, but was unable to save him. He died, as predicted, 10 years from the time that Abdul Baha told him that he would die. So here is how did Abdul Baha know, and why did he come to his dream to predict his death 10 years later? While he was in good health, there was no reason for him to die. Then I will tell you about one of my own dreams. I've been blessed with many dreams myself, and I will tell you about one of my dreams about 2 or 3 years ago. One night I dreamed that someone in the world of dream told me that the Bab, we call him the Bab, but his real name is Rabba Allah, means the Lord the Most High. That is his real name, which is predicted in the Old Testament. He's called Lord the Most High, Rabba Allah. He wants to talk to you. So I ran in the world of dream to find a telephone to talk with him, but I could not find the phone. I woke up. So the next night, I had the honor of being in his presence. We were sitting in the balcony, and he appeared. He was a young man. I did not know he was the Bab, but I knew that he was a divine being. So I showed utmost respect to him while I was in his presence. And he spoke for 15 minutes. This was a long time, in a language that we do not speak on this earth. It was a language that I think all of us will speak in heaven, because people will come from all kinds of the world, and how could they speak to each other? So we will have a language unique for all of us in that world. So he spoke in that language, and I could barely understand him. And then, after a while, which I estimate to be about 15 minutes, he changed the language, and he said the word azmayish in Farsi. Azmayish means test in English. So I asked him immediately, will I pass my test? Will I pass my azmayish? He looked at me and did not respond. Then I asked him, will I live a long life? Again, he looked at me with a smile and he did not answer. So this was the end of my dream. I wrote my dream and did not know what would await me. I had backache for 15 years, and I went to all kinds of specialists to tell me what if they could find a cure. And none of them found a reason. They just said, there is no reason you should have a backache. While I had a cancer, lymphoma in my back, growing for 15 years. And I believe because of my diet, I lasted that long. So I was in a terrible shape. I went to emergency, and they said, sorry, you have lymphoma, cancer, and you need immediate treatment. So I went to Louisville, where my daughter is, and had treatment for 1 month. I won't go into details. It will take me probably 1 hour to tell you what happened in the hospital. But later, when I was released from the hospital, I was told that the doctors had no hope for my survival. My cancer was at stage 4. And they gave me 1 chemotherapy, and they said you need at least 2 or 3 more therapies. The doctors, the oncologists, insisted I should have my second one right away, soon. And I came to Mount Pleasant, where I live, and I met 2 other oncologists. They said, yes, you're not going to recover. You need to get 2 more treatment, chemotherapies. But I knew in my heart that if I receive another chemotherapy, I will die. Because I was so weak, you can imagine the amount of poison they inject in you at my age. I refused to have chemotherapy. I said I would rather die from cancer than from drug. The oncologist said, I said, okay, why don't you give me a CAT scan to see? Maybe I have recovered. I had faith that someone will save me. He said, no, there is no reason. This is a waste of money and time. You must I insisted that, no, give me a CAT scan. Sure enough, he reluctantly gave order for CAT scan, and the CAT scan showed complete recovery from cancer. This was incredible, and it's now 2 years that it has not returned. But about a year ago, I went to emergency and I asked for a CAT scan to see if my cancer possibly is back. I want to make sure. The doctor in charge was a very greedy doctor, and he gave me every test imaginable just to increase his income. And among them, he gave me an iodide, which is very poisonous, which increases the contrast in CAT scan. And that iodide caused massive damage to my skin. I still suffer from that, the harm that he inflicted on my skin. There's itching going on in different parts of my body. But I'm grateful that I have survived and been able to do upload my unpublished books on Amazon. You can find as many as 50 volumes on Amazon. All of them in English, of course. My Farsi books have not been published. And I'm now in the process of writing a letter to Christians to invite them to investigate the Baha'i faith. So God protected me, and whoever was in charge, the Bab or Baha'u'llah, that I should survive and be able to continue what I had started. I'm very grateful to be alive. For suffering, many of you are suffering from disease. This is the most difficult age in human history. Jesus predicted it would be a time of stress and distress, the like of which the world has never seen, nor will it ever see. You can imagine the level of suffering that humankind is enduring in this age is beyond estimation. So if you're suffering, you're not an exception. But behind suffering, there are blessings. Baha'u'llah said, my suffering is a calamity, is a blessing from God. Because through suffering, we can reveal our true self. Unless we suffer, our true self does not manifest itself. And when we are patient, and we should thank God instead of complaining to God, then we are truly showing our faith. So don't worry about suffering. Bless God and thank God for suffering instead of complaining to God. It doesn't mean we should not seek support and recover medical help, but it's the attitude that matters and keeps us alive. Then I'd like to tell you about another dream of a person you would not expect. This dream is from a family in Afghanistan named Qadiri. He was a military man in Afghanistan, a high-ranking military officer. When Taliban came into power, Taliban, the most cruel terrorists in the world, they killed the military officers and imprisoned some of the Baha'is. In fact, I know one of them who became blind while being in prison, Mr. Kazemi. So he ran for his life. He went to Pakistan, and he was there for a couple of years and contracted a deadly disease. And then he was allowed to go come to the United States. While he was here, I happened to know him and support him, and he was editing my book Baha'u'llah in the Quran in Pashto language, which is spoken widely in Afghanistan. He was such a wonderful believer, you cannot imagine his love for Baha'u'llah. So he died and he passed away a couple of years ago. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, his son, his name is Mustafa, called me. I should also say this man had a son in Afghanistan. He was driving a car. They knew that he was a Baha'i family. Taliban hijacked his car, took him, and he disappeared. No one knows what happened to him, to this young man. But one of the brothers, he came to the United States, His name is Mustafa, and he called me a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him, I always like to know what dreams people have. I asked him, have you had any dream about your father? And he said, yes, I have a dream. I asked my father, how is it there? Very blank, point blank question. He dared to ask his father. You know what he answered? He said, you can attain any wish, any desire you have, you can attain. This is the best description of heaven, that you will be crowned with your wishes. Anything you wish, you will be able to reach that wish. And I believe the definition of hell is anything you wish, you will get just the opposite. That's my definition, of course. It will be just the opposite of heaven. And Baha'u'llah says that there are two qualities in heaven. One is joy, the other one is power. It's obvious that they're joyful, but their power is that they can guide us, they can influence us, they can have power on this planet. Baha'u'llah said they are the leaven that leaveneth the world. So their force, their influence is invisible, yet they are the ones who have much to do with our lives. I'd like to tell you about another dream which shows that there is a power that can protect us when we need to be protected. You see, the reason we die is always natural consequences, the laws of nature. God does not kill anybody. You know, people say, why? When I was in travel teaching in Florida, there was a lady, he was a professor of biology, and she had married recently, and her husband died, and she abandoned not only the Baha'i faith, but God. He said, why God took my husband away from me? She blamed God for losing her husband. I couldn't believe that. But many of us blame God. When we are enjoying life, everything is fine, we forget God. But when something tragedy happens, we blame it on God. God does not kill anybody. The Bible says does not kill even an ant. It's the laws of nature that takes people away. When we break the laws of nature, or we inherit some kind of genes, could be all kind of reasons. But death is not a messenger of grief, it's a messenger of joy. We look down on death, but God says, I have made death a messenger of joy to thee. Why dost thou grieve? So that's another point to remember, that we abhor death, but we're relieved from all the suffering that we have in this life. In fact, I can tell you another dream that I had not planned to tell you. A dear friend of mine who always edited my book and helped me, George Via, he was stricken with cancer, and he was dying, and there is a gentleman, Somali, his name is, from Iran. He had a small factory. They set his factory on fire, so he could have escaped, but he went to save one of the employees. And while he was running to save the other employee, he came and tried to escape, but for some reason he could not escape, and he burned his facial. I have not seen him, but people, a terrible scar on his face. So this man dreamed to Baha'u'llah to save this friend of him, George Via, who edited for me. He's a wonderful believer. You cannot imagine how spiritual he was. And Baha'u'llah came to his dream, and he said he will be happier in the next life. He will not suffer anymore. This was his answer. He did not say, I'm going to save him, or he said, let him go. He'll be happier. I'm sure he's in heaven, maybe watching us even today. So his death was a blessing for him. And those who remain behind, they should regard that separation is difficult. We grieve, and we should grieve, but we should also look forward to a life beyond this life. So let me tell you the last dream, which can save us from it. When sometimes God intervenes, if there is a reason for our survival, God intervenes. But if there is no reason, the laws of nature will take its course. So let me give you a dream about God's intervention. And this is about my own life. I had a scar, a tumor on my thigh many, many years ago. So I went to a surgeon and he operated on this tumor. It was benign, it wasn't cancerous. So it appeared okay, but this tumor got angry and said, I was visible and you remove me, I'm going to be invisible. So this tumor worked inside my body, not outside, so it became invisible. But a little bit sign on my thigh. So there was a little bit sign I could see, smaller than before, but yet I did not know that there was something going on inside. So I made a number of teaching trips to southern states. I was in Dallas, Texas, and I stayed there for 2 months. I had a dream that a man and a woman are operating on the same spot where there was that tumor. So I knew that something must be serious. I didn't take this dream lightly. I believed that there was something going on. So while I was traveling, I was not in my own home. I went to a Presbyterian hospital, which is a huge hospital. It's like a city, and it's a state hospital. So I went to a doctor. It was a lady from India. I told her about that scar, and I asked if I could have some kind of image of this. And she said yes. There was an X-ray taken. I don't know what kind of image, but it probably was an X-ray. And she said, yes, you need to operate on this tumor. So I made an appointment, and there was operation. And then I asked this lady, how big was this tumor? Was it a sign of a walnut? He said no. She said it was the size of a tomato. That's what her answer. I don't know if tomatoes come in different sizes, but I assumed this was a big tomato. That a lot of liquid had accumulated in this, invisible, completely invisible. And I asked doctors about the danger of not operating, and the two answers I received, one was it could be infection, invisible. We would not know where the infection infection is caused. I could be on antibiotic for years, or it could cause damage to my nervous system. So what was amazing is that in my dream I saw a man and a woman who operated on this tumor, and in the hospital it was exactly the same. A woman was a doctor, the man was an anesthesiologist. They worked together to save me from this tragedy. So if there is a reason that we should survive, God intervenes. But if not, we should accept it. Death is the messenger of joy, and submit to God's plan. Baha'u'llah, there is a quotation from Abdul Baha. He says, if the veil is lifted, you will choose what has occurred. The reason we refuse to accept the events, especially the unfortunate events of our life, is we do not see the invisible. If the veil is lifted, we will choose whatever happens in our life. This is very significant. Remember it, and know that there are many mysteries we do not know, and only God knows, and we should not know. I did not, I was not, the Bab did not tell me how long I will live. I should not know. We should be happy that we have a time, and during this time we should practice two things. The first is to love God and to love people, express, show that love to people, and then the next thing is to serve as much as possible, because we have come, Baha'u'llah and all the messengers have told us, we have come to know God. The other side of this is that we are here so that God will know us. Remember this. We're here to know God, but we are also here so that God will know us. By the love we show to people, by the service we render, by the devotion and humility and self-sacrifice, we are truly showing our true self. This is the purpose of life. It's such a pleasure to be present with this gathering. Remember my brother, my dear brother. He left his jewelries with me, and I always remember him every day. He is blessed. He lived a good life, and we hope we all follow his example of service and love for humanity. Thank you for listening. May Baha'u'llah bless all of us. Thank you again. Bye.
Thank you, Hugh.
You're welcome.
You unmute.